Hi guys, welcome to Talking Points Arena. On the TB Joshua saga, this is my take. First of all, before you listen to what I have to say, I want us to remove every form of sentiments, emotions, and personal ideas and personal beliefs, religious beliefs, and just watch and listen to what we have to say based on your reasoning. Let us look at it because if we remove all those sentiments, then we'll be able to understand and reason together. TB Joshua was a prophet. According to him, he said he's a prophet TB Joshua. And a prophet, according to what we know in Christianity, is somebody who is a messenger of God. And a messenger of God is a mouthpiece of God, delivers message to God's people. And when you are a messenger of God, it means that God gives you a message that is correct. And as a prophet, you prophesy and tell the people what God told you. And God cannot lie, which means everything that you say as a prophet must come to pass and it must be true because it is believed to have come from God. On the calling of prophets, when the prophet is called by God, God does not consider qualifications, He does not consider righteousness or every other thing. He just called you if He feels He wants to use you as an instrument to spread His word to His people. Let us take a historical journey by looking at the past prophets whom God used as His mouthpiece. Look at the story of Prophet Jeremiah, Prophet Amos, Isaiah, even Jonah. These prophets were not perfect before God called them. But after God called them, He qualified them for that particular assignment. That is why it is said that God does not call the qualified, instead, He qualifies the chosen. Even Moses was considered a prophet in the Old Testament. But Moses had a lot of shortcomings. In fact, he was even a stammerer. But God used him to deliver the people of Israel, and he served as God's mouthpiece for the people. Now, let us go on this journey by looking at some of the activities of the so-called man of God or prophet of God, which is who is TB Joshua. TB Joshua owned a ministry which he called Synagogue Church of All Nations, and he is addressed as Prophet TB Joshua, which means he is believed to have been called by God, and he should serve as God's messenger and God's mouthpiece. If we take look at some of the activities, some of the prophecies that he gave while he was alive, um, we have to see if all the prophecies that he gave came to pass, then we can say for certain that this man was called by God. But if we also look at it, and there were some of the prophecies that he gave out which never came to pass, which means he is called to question in that area because God cannot lie. One of the problems we see with people, our people, is that we always go into everything with emotions. And that is why it is easy for people to capture the hearts of individuals by doing certain things, especially even when you are doing something that is wrong and you cover it up with charity and giving. People are blindfolded. It's now very difficult for them to look into your activities. If you look at our generation, you remember Eddie Nanog. Eddie Nanog was also considered a prophet while he was alive because he was called Prophet Eddie Nanog. People never believed that he was doing something wrong as at that time because he was helping people, he was bringing riches, he was giving money. So, because of that, his charity covered his sins, and nobody looked into what was happening behind the scenes. I can understand that when people get things, they feel like, oh, every good thing comes from God. We understand. But it depends on the level and what you understand as good thing. Because for in our generation, what people consider as good are the things, the material things. As long as you can give them money, as long as you can bring food and put on the table and give gifts, and maybe you do a lot of charity, then you are considered good. But we forget that even the devil, the evil one, can as well give such gifts. That is why in our generation, even when you look at what they call Apokoti Warake, can also be considered a prophet because he's also doing charity. And that is why when you come on social media, he does things and people are clapping all over. Nobody considers what happens behind the scene. And when you compare some of these things, the past, the history of things that have happened in the past, and you compare with what is coming out now in this issue of TB Joshua, it's not like quite disconnected. I am not saying that some of the things that came out in the documentary that BBC is running are all correct. But there are things that when we look at them critically as individuals with reasoning, then we'll find connection. First of all, I do not completely agree with BBC running this documentary because they always want to paint whatever that comes from Africa as bad, but when it comes to their own side, they paint it as good. This is not the only bad thing that have happened in Nigeria that they have to focus on it. Why can't they also run a documentary on how they have been controlling and masterminding the production of bad leadership in Nigeria? Why can't they run a commentary on how they have been siphoning some of the resources, how they have been using some of our leaders to work against the people? Why can't they run a documentary on colonialism, which they stand at the forefront, and even up to today, they still use so many other factors like the Commonwealth to keep people in bondage? They cannot do this, but instead they come and pick up something that they feel is bad, and they run a documentary for us. In fact, today they have BBC Igbo, BBC Hausa, BBC Yoruba, BBC Chop, all kinds of tribes in Nigeria now struggle to have their own media, which is connected to BBC, which means there is a kind of total conquering of the people through the media. So they censor what you want to hear. They give you how you want to react. They tell you a story from their own angle. So I'm not saying this because I'm supporting what they are saying. I'm saying it based on common sense and understanding. So it's not because BBC is running the documentary. But also, when you look at the activities in that synagogue of foundation, there are things that come you that are called to question in that documentary. First of all, these people that are coming out now to speak, that they have been subjugated and used for a very long time. Why didn't they come out? Why this man was alive? They stayed there for 14 years, 15 years, 17 years, and you were going through this kind of suffering and you refuse to speak up. Does it mean that there have been maybe they were blindfolded, or they were afraid of their lives? Is also a possibility. There's a way cultism works. It is easy to join, but very difficult to get out. Now, when you join a cult, you see they will not reveal everything to you by the time you are at the verge of joining. But by the time you join, they show you the good sides, and then you come in fully, and then they reveal every other thing and give you the terms and conditions. And at that point, you will no longer pull out because they have revealed everything. If you dare pull out, then they're going to come for your life. That is what it is. Cultism, especially when it is geared towards the bad side. So you also do not, I cannot also stand here and blame those people completely because they were not able to speak up. Probably they were held down, subjugated, threatened, that if they do anything contrary, then they are going to be eliminated. It's also possible that there is a spiritual power that is being used to keep everybody that comes to that temple. But that's for you to decide. It's not up to me. So when you watch this, you are going to make the decision by yourself to see if this is correct. Yes, TB Joshua is a man that does a lot of charity. We watch on the TV networks and how he does out a lot of material things to people, helping a lot of people and bringing up things. That is good. It's a good gesture. But that he is doing these things doesn't mean also that he may not be a false person, that he cannot be coming from the devil. Because even the people who are known as those who come from the devil can still do those things. In fact, it is one of the main things that the devil used to bring people to himself. You remember one of the temptations of Jesus? He went up to the mountain, the devil showed him the whole world and said, if you can bow down and worship me, I'm going to give you this whole thing. So when you talk about wealth, in fact, it's one of the ways you can use to even watch critically and see those who belong to God and those who don't. The old prophets of God didn't actually give credence to wealth. They didn't consider they were more important in the salvation of soul, preaching, and all of that. In fact, it's also one of the reasons why they chose the seven deacons when it was about material things. Like, okay, we don't want to get involved with this. The apostles said, disciples of Jesus said, we are going to concentrate on the propagation of the word of God. Why the seven deacons should concentrate on sharing of food and on every other material thing? They took themselves away from that because that is not the main thing why God called you. If God calls you to speak up, or to talk to the people, or to send a message, He gives you that direct message, and this is for you to deliver it to the people. It's not up to you to start giving money, doing all kinds of things. In fact, you remember one of the activities of TV Joshua, which also was very, whenever I hear that ministry, it becomes very skeptical. That he sells even anointed water and anointed oil and all of that. They sell it at a very huge price, money, very huge price. If you go there, they sell anointed water to you for thousands of naira. Compare it to the life of Christ. When Jesus was in the world, was he doing this kind of thing? Was he selling anointed water? Was he selling healing? Was he asking people to come and sow seeds and all of that? In fact, he walks on the street and people come to him and he gives the healing and he moves on. He never collected material gifts as a way or as a reward for the miracle or the things that he did. But all these things happen. But it's not up to us to sit down and give judgments. TB Joshua is dead. But then the activities that he did are coming out now. The people that went through these sufferings are coming out now to speak up. In fact, when you see multitude, a lot of people coming out to say something and you just discountenance it because you stay far. Many of us do not know what happens behind the scenes. It's only a few people who worked very closely with him that can tell you the truth. In fact, when they talk about arranging miracles and people keep doubting it, look, that somebody told you that you are going to be rich next year is not necessarily a prophecy because something can as well, something can happen in your life, and then next year is going to be your year. You can go and play lottery, and then somebody tells you, "Oh, if you have, I see something very wonderful happening in your life, and you go and play lottery and you win it next year," and then it's a kind of coincidence. Sometimes, not all the times, but our people, due to the level of understanding, due to the level of poverty that exists among our people, everybody thinks that once it says, "Oh, something good is going to happen to you next year," maybe you go into a business and you happen to like succeed in that business, you attribute it to that prophecy. Sometimes it's about guesses. How you will know this is that how about they tell you that and next year nothing happens? Have you not experienced it that somebody tells you, "Oh, next year I see something very great happening to you," and then next year it becomes disaster and a lot of bad things happen? So some of those are just guesses. And when they talk about arranging miracles, they also arrange. It is real. People do these things. They rehearse it. I have seen it happen among even the people that I know personally who say they are men of God. They ask you questions, interview you, get information about things, and then they go behind the scenes, pay somebody, and the person comes to church and they know the name. They want to come to the altar. They call him. If I have a huge multitude and among that multitude, there must be somebody called Ngozi, possibly, or Patricia. And they can call your name and say, "Oh, Patricia, I see you going through this, going through that." There will be somebody that will match with. Maybe somebody's going through that and he's called Patricia. Maybe the person is not in that congregation. Maybe it's somewhere. They can also arrange somebody who's called Patricia, and when such things happen, they come to the altar. Have you not had such a thing before? So it is quite unfortunate that when these kind of things happen, people go into it with emotion by saying, "Oh, yeah, I received rice from him, therefore he's a real man of God." Or I received that you receive those things doesn't qualify that person as a man of God or somebody who is doing the will of God. No, it doesn't necessarily follow like that. He can be a bad person and he's still doing those kind of charities. If people are coming out to say, "Yes, I was raped in this ministry. Yes, this was and so thing happened to me." Now, after his death, what is happening to that synagogue church of all nations? And another question that you have to ask yourself: why is it that it's only one branch that he has? Ask yourself, he has only that one branch, probably because he wants to be in control of everything that happens in the ministry. Because they know what happens behind the scenes. He's going to be in that branch where only him can control everything. No other person can have such power to do something. And let me tell you also, when you say that you are training prophets, people you call disciples, you are not Jesus Christ, that you are training junior prophets are actually, just like I said before, they are called. They are not trained. When a prophet is called, God gives him the word. God tells him what to do. Whether you are educated or uneducated, you don't actually need to follow a procedure for you to become a prophet of God. Because he calls you, he qualifies you for the journey. God is all powerful and he can even make you change overnight. So when he wants to use you, he uses you. You don't need that training. So people who go through those kind of say like he's a prophet and he's trying to train junior prophet, disciples, or whatever thing that they call him, you see the way they act and the way they behave, then that is how you will know that there is something shady happening behind the scenes. So let us not always just come out and say, "Oh, he's a man of God," because we've seen a lot of things. So at this point in time, I'm not saying that TB Joshua is a false prophet or he's a good prophet. For me, I'm very open-minded to some of these things. I never attended this church. I didn't believe in him. But with these things coming out, it is good for us to watch critically and look at everything with a critical and open mind to know whether what is being said is the correct thing or is the wrong thing. Because we have seen a lot in the world. The ministry that is still going on, his wife, we saw the fight between his wife and some other people there. If it is a real ministry of God, I don't think those fights will be happening. I don't even think that the family necessarily need to take over. That is not a business. If it is a ministry of God, the apostles and the disciples, when they were doing these things, Peter, who was the head of the apostles, by the time Peter died, the leadership of that ministry was not handed over to his son, his family, or any other person connected to him. Is from the among the people of God, among those who work with him, those other that another person takes over. But what happens today in some of those ministries? Ask yourself, if the founder of the ministry dies, is it his successor? Does it come from among other pastors and all of that? Many times you find out they transfer it to their family member, to their children, to the like it's a business empire. But it's not up to me to make you take a decision on what is right or what is not correct. So now, after looking at those things, I want you to like open up your mind and look at those things that people have been complaining about. Look at them with open mindset. Stop going there with emotions and say, "Oh, I'm a Christian, or I don't want to speak against the man of God." That's not true. You can't speak against the man of God. Nobody's telling you to talk against, but open up your mind to find out what is correct so that you stop living in ignorance. Because ignorance is what is killing our people. Open up your mindset and get what is correct and make the decision for yourself. And it's not just about TB Joshua. Also think about those other churches and other people we call prophets and men of God. You have to scrutinize to know the one that is actually coming from God, the one that is really, really called by God, and stop going to the wrong places.